Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Sheeba Varghese, an executive leadership coach, and she was voted the top leadership trainer by the International Association of Top Professionals in 2020. Good morning, Sheeba.
Good morning, Mark. It's great to be here and to be with you today.
Thank you. So why don't we get started? Can you give me a brief description of yourself and your work experience?
Absolutely. So I started in the education field years ago, and from there transitioned into another field where we're still educating and training and facilitating, but it's with leaders. So I started my business in the coaching field in 2010 and have been in that industry now for the last 10 years. Really helping leaders to transition from simply managing every day to leading within their spheres. And that could look very different depending on the leader.
Yes. So the coronavirus has made changes to almost every industry.
Absolutely.
What unique challenges are leaders experience in the current environment?
I think depending on what type of industry you're in, it will affect that leader differently. So were they able to transition all virtual or online, I should say, is one. So our leaders now managing completely remote teams, which is the case. And then for some leaders, they've had to make hard decisions. How can we keep some of our employees just sustain for however long we're going to have to be sheltered in place. Some have had to lay off. So it's really been about focusing in on what's most important during this time. But what I've seen is, especially with many workplaces going completely remote, it's how to manage that now.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
As you know, the stay-in-place order has been in effect for over a month now in the Bay Area.
Oh, can you imagine?
Start of the fifth week, right?
I believe so. It seems longer.
Yeah, I know. So how has that affected you as a leadership coach?
Yeah, so normally when for me, I've done a lot of virtual training. So Zoom has been my close buddy and friend for several years now. But the part that has really affected me is that, I usually meet my potential clients face to face. And set up appointments, and I'm able to meet one-on-one, go to networking events, meet other leaders. So that aspect has definitely changed. The other thing is a lot of companies are reprioritizing leadership development, and just saying, okay, maybe let's wait because there's just other things that are more important in their company right now. Not to say that leadership development isn't, but the focus of what they need to do now might be a little deprioritized towards learning and development, and saying, okay, we still need this, but maybe towards the second half of the year. Regardless, I'm still reaching out to my clients and just giving them support on how to manage and sustain during this time.
Interesting. So do you have any special curriculum that deals with leading remote teams?
Not special curriculum, but if anything, I've been doing webinars on how to manage completely remote teams. Because as you know, Mark, you've led remote teams. Am I correct?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, and so that there is a bit of a difference because the timeframes can be different. If you have teams that are global, right, that can also be different. And then firming up how you actually will use what platform to communicate, right? Because it can be an overwhelm on some platforms, and how are we going to set those guidelines in place? I think all those things need to be firmed up and shored up, especially when you're managing completely remote teams. So it's still around management, but at the same time, you're really up-leveling those skills when you're managing remote. You've got to be a lot more clearer, I feel, in your communication. I don't know if you found that to be true with you when you were managing remote.
Yeah, I think the thing I noticed is if you give them really good instructions.
Yeah.
So it forces you to get your ducks in a row, so to say.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I think the setting of expectations, where you're going to house some of the documents, is there a central hub? All of these things have to be really shored up. And I think when you transition to completely remote teams, you'll start seeing where the gaps are.
Right. And, yeah, because it's funny because like when you're coming into an office, you see the people every day. You can say, "Oh, just do this." But when they're remote, you have this vision. Oh my God, they're going to be sitting there doing nothing for 8 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
I always liken it to having a house cleaner. That you ever notice that if the house cleaner comes on Wednesday, on Tuesday night, you're getting everything ready.
Yeah. You're like doing this cleaning right before the cleaning
I know. It's amazing.
happens. Yes.
So I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you a couple more generic questions now, not about the current situation. Are there any special challenges that women leaders experience that you have noticed?
I think some of the things I've noticed is if they're the only ones in the leadership board, or if they're the only partner of a firm and they're surrounded by all males, I think it has its difficulties, because the way a woman leads, it's not for her to find out. It's not for her to think that I need to lead like a man.
Hmm.
It's really lead as authentically as you can. Um, but it is difficult because, say, for example, even if you put a social event together, and if it's all guys,
Hmm.
so what do you do with the husband of the wife who is the leader in that organization? See, these kinds of things that we don't really even think about, if you're all male.
Hmm.
Um, so I think there are challenges, and even in this time, it's like, okay, what do you do if you're a single stay-at-home mom or dad, not stay-at-home, but a single mom or dad who is, who's a leader? How are you dealing with children, and depending on what stage they are in their schooling?
Yeah.
So these kinds of things, I think. Women have to think about even more. How about if you get pregnant and you're staying home and you're wanting to be home, and then how do you move? Some are wanting to have greater levels of responsibility in their leadership, but there's that tug of, well, how could I manage that with the children? So there are a lot of these things that you have to kind of consider for women in leadership, which
Mhm.
I don't know if men think about it in the same way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they don't, but I'm just saying there's a difference, I
Yeah.
feel.
Actually, that reminds me of a show I watch on Netflix now that I have time to watch shows on Netflix. It's called Working Moms.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
see it? And it actually dealt with that issue.
I haven't seen it, but it's a real thing, right?
Mhm.
So, how do we? I saw, to back up just a bit. I saw this meme on Facebook, and it was this mom who was getting ready to go for a conference, and all the things that she had to put into place before
Mhm.
she left. And then it showed the husband leaving, and he just kind of picked up his suitcase and he's just leaving. But I don't want to say that that's the case for everybody.
I
I'm
know.
just saying that I've seen this where it's like, okay, do you have all the schedules picked out? Do we have all the meals ready? Do you know what time the children
Mhm.
are going for after school activities? All these things, it's in your mind, and you've been doing it and managing it, and you're thinking, okay, husband, do you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yes,
yeah.
I understand. So the last question is, have you noticed any challenges that leaders from other cultures have when they come to America?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was born in India, but I was raised in the United States. And I feel many of the leaders abroad, there's more of a hierarchical type of situation within
Mhm.
their organizations and companies. I know you've dealt with,
Mhm.
those in India as well, Mark. But they're less prone to tell you what they really think, I feel.
Mhm.
And they'll probably go along, even though they might have a better idea, or they might not feel good about doing something. So I see the hierarchy that's more prevalent in other countries, and when they come here, I think there is an adjustment to that. I also think that in other countries, many are just so happy to have a job that they will go above and beyond to do everything and anything that they can to keep that job. And so this work-life balance gets all mixed up, when
Mhm.
they come here, because they just work, work, work. And so something gets affected, which is usually their families.
Yes.
So those are some of the things I've seen. How about you?
Yeah, I've experienced that too on both ends of it. I mean, I've noticed that dealing with teams in other countries, they really want to do well, and they will do exactly what you tell them, and they won't question it.
Yeah.
Where an American employee will be like, "Hey, did you look at this? This isn't going to fly in America." Right?
Yes. Yes. And the other thing, there is a shift happening too, because there are the younger generations that are coming into the workforce.
Mhm.
So I am seeing that shift, that they are not just doing it as the older generations have always done it, and they are pushing back, and there is some level of resistance, and the work ethic looks a little different as well
Right.
compared to before. So there are changes that I am seeing.
Well, that's good, because I remember thinking it was more military. It's like you don't question your commander before, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know everything, and neither does
Yes.
any boss. They need, I've always thought that bottom up is the best way to do things, not top down.
Yeah, there's that collaboration, right?
Mhm.
Even in coaching, often I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to hear what's inside of you. What are the thoughts you have, and let's bring that forward. And sometimes I have found that when coaching those in other cultures, it's hard for them to really describe what it is that they are thinking because they've never been asked.
Mhm.
They've always been told.
Yes.
So it's new, it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, a 5-year-old versus a 15-year-old.
Yeah, yeah.
A 5-year-old, everything is, oh my God, it's, everything is what mom and dad say. And a 15-year-old, they don't believe a word you say.
Yeah.
There's kind of a nice balance in there somewhere.
There is. But I think the other thing, like I said, is because their work defines them often.
Hmm.
And so that will start to impact their relationships at home. And
Yeah.
being in America, you really need to look at that because listen, work comes and goes, but your family, it's important how your family is around you as well. And so it will get impacted when that value is placed so highly on their job and that defines who they are. And so what happens is it will affect the family, I
Yes, it will.
think.
Well, Sheba, this has been fascinating. I love all of your insights into this. Is a unique topic, both, in general and in current times. And I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the work that you're doing as well.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.